Hello and welcome to this video. And this video I am going to explore a concept that I keep coming back to on this channel, and it's the idea of chaos and order. Two opposing forces, two opposing concepts, or two opposing realities that exist out there in the universe. If you explore this idea and see how human beings have negotiated between this idea in our history, it's actually very interesting. And for me, it informs our understanding of the arts, it informs our understanding of music, and it also informs our understanding of science. Science is the method we use, not the only method, but it's probably the most successful method we use for trying to elucidate truth out there in this situation which we find ourselves. With the arts, what we're trying to do is discover and record and describe what beauty is. I've always thought that wisdom is the pursuit of truth, honestly, and the appreciation of beauty. Wisdom is embodied in all sorts of different archetypes, I suppose. In our culture, you could see it embodied in the idea of the wizard. A wizard's an interesting character because a wizard embodies both knowledge of the universe, but also an ability to control that universe through what we call magic. Magic's a very strange thing. If I think about, well, where do we start with this? Right, let's deal with chaos first. Last night I was in here teaching a student, and suddenly my wife runs in and she said, "You've got to come into the house, something's happened." And what had happened is the electrics had blown out upstairs. And when the electrics blow out in my house, my burglar alarm goes off. So I go into the house, it's in pitch black, and I can hear this sound being broadcast across the community. This wow, 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 wow is going off all over the place. And the feeling you have when that happens is really panic, right? Panic sets in. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What's actually happened is the ordered world of my family home, which isn't completely ordered, but is about as ordered as we can get it, has suddenly fell into the realm of chaos. Chaos has come and grabbed the situation and pulled it down into the underworld of chaos, right? The only way I can... the only way I could counter that was by trying to inflict some order on the situation, which meant calmly finding a torch and shining a light on the proceedings. I eventually got into the fuse box, and I've got a really old fuse box that requires you to actually have fuse wire and wire things up and tie knots and all that type of thing. So that's what I did. I hadn't got any fuse wire, so I tried to calmly walk down the shop. I saw the shopkeeper and said, "Have you got any fuse wire?" He came out and helped me, because people will, and I got the fuse wire. I went back, got my torch, changed the fuses, and then lo and behold, as I flicked the switch, the lights came back on and the burglar alarm stopped. I had inflicted order on this chaotic situation. In doing that, I had to act in a certain way. When I did it, I felt quite pleased with myself. I felt quite heroic that I'd been able to do this thing. I felt like a man. I turned around to my wife and said, "I've actually done a manly thing. None of this faffing around with drums and music and talking nonsense on YouTube. I've actually done something that a proper man would do." Right? And so I linked it a strange way, and it's probably not something you're allowed to do nowadays, but I linked order to the idea of a man. A man comes and brings order in. My wife was panicking. She wanted the electric back on so she could finish cooking the dinner. She wanted to bring her order in, but it was a different type of order. So in everyday life, we hit this idea of chaos and order. Chaos causes anxiety. Disorder creates depression. If you look at a lot of people, when they get fired up, and not fired up, that's the wrong word. When they get pulled down, it's not up, it's down. Fire is not the right word, is it? When they get pulled down into a depression, it is because of their reaction to what they perceive as being disorder, order and chaos. Now, these terms, the words aren't wide enough to explain what's really going on, because the idea of chaos and order only covers a certain thing. But it's my belief that the sort of anxiety and the angst that musicians have is the fear of chaos emerging and pulling us down. Now, chaos, you cannot reason with chaos. You have to fight against chaos with reason. I'm going to give you some examples of this now. If you were a Jew in Nazi Germany and the stormtroopers turn up and bang your door, there is no point in reasoning with them. They will not listen. They're unreasonable, like zombies. They're switched off. An ideology of extreme order has made them irrational. They cannot be reasoned with. That makes them very frightening. Things that you cannot reason with are frightening. You have to stand up to them, but you have to be aware that you cannot reason with that amount of force. The Nazis were trying to inflict extreme order onto their society. And in doing that, if you move to the right, all the way to the right, you get to a point where that idea of order becomes chaos. Now, if we move to the left, politically, we can see that what people want to do is that they're utopians. They want to create a better world, which is what the Nazis wanted to do. And in doing that, they have an ideology that they think will achieve that. Now, a lot of the things they discuss in that ideology are very good things. They're honourable things. But if you go too far that way, that ideology has to be enforced. You get to a situation, you go, what about the people? What about all the chaotic people out there that won't conform to our ideology? What do we do with them? And very soon you've moved to exactly the same place as the Nazis. Right? You cannot be reasoned with. You will not listen to rational argument. It's the same state that exists at the ends of both chaos and order. If you go too far towards order, you get chaos. And if you move too far the other way, you are moving towards order, the order on the left, and you end up in chaos. The most successful, I believe, societies in human history, and this has been negotiated over years to arrive at this, are societies where we allow freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Now, a lot of people out there say it's very important to have freedom of speech because you need counter-arguments. But I would go further than that, and I would say you need freedom of speech because you have to allow people to be chaotic. A liberal democratic society allows the people to vote for who they want. That's dangerous. To think what they want, that's dangerous. And you will have a society full of people thinking terrible things. But what you do is you tolerate that. And in tolerating it, you get a harmony between chaos and order in your society. There's enough chaos to counter the extreme order. That negotiation, and this is one of the words I use on this channel a lot, the negotiation of that is a thing that humans have done throughout history. Now, if you're a scientist, you believe in trying to find out what truth is. You believe that there's one universe that's a material. There's no supernatural heaven. There's no God. If you're an atheist, scientific, is that the word? Materialist, then you believe there's just one thing, the material of what's around you. But what the scientist does, and they don't seem to be aware of this, is they look for order in the universe. They make the statement that the universe is one thing, and in that thing is order that we can elucidate. The grand order that runs the universe that they're trying to expose, what's the name for that? Okay? The religious people have another way of seeing it. They see order in God. They think there's one God, and the one God orders the universe. If you go to Genesis and you read through it, you will find that there is a very specific description of how God takes this chaotic universe that is in front of them and orders it. I've actually got here some notes which I should have pulled up before I started. See how chaos. Anyone who watches this channel will know I've now got a light paid for by my patrons and donations. I've got a microphone. I have tried to inflict more order onto this video, and I can feel it as I'm talking. You know, it's everything feels like it's higher stakes doing this. It's taken me about half an hour to set it up. I have tried to inflict more order on my YouTube. Is this a good thing? We'll soon find out with the reaction. God inflicts an order, and he inflicts an order in this order over 7 days. I'm going to read it out. The first thing he does is divide. He divides the universe into heaven and earth. Okay? Heaven can be seen as the perfect realm. Earth is full of chaos. Right? He makes that division between the two. Then he creates day and night. Right? The day is now illuminated. When you illuminate something, you see what's there. We can now see what's happening. Right? And there's a cycle. We pass into night, and night is the realm of darkness. It's the realm of chaos. It's the realm of the evil spirits. It's the realm of dreams, of the irrational. Then the sun comes up. And we all know this feeling. The sun comes up and shines a light on the situation. You know, I know this seems bad at the moment, but, you know, sleep on it. And when you wake up in the morning, you know, you might be able to see it in a new way. That's the second thing that God does. He then divides the land from the sea. We know that the sea, that the underworld, underwater, is a strange place. It's allied to our dreams, our subconscious. In the sea there are monsters. In the Bible it talks about the beast, which is some sort of dragon with how many heads? It's 6 heads or something. You know, in Greek mythology we have all these creatures of the underworld that swim in the sea. Anybody who's swimming on the top of the sea, on that point where the irrational meets the rational, when the chaos meets order, if you're swimming there, you look up and it's all calm. But below, what's there? Is there some sort of beast going to come up and drag you down? And what are they dragging you down into? God then, he divides up, he creates plants and animals, flora and fauna, right? The plants are static. They stay where they are. They grow in the space they grow. They have a different type of existence to animals that can move around. I've done a whole video on the metaphorical meaning of a tree and how a tree embodies the fourth dimension, time. Right? So I think we can almost see the animals as representing time and space. When we look at a tree, we see time. When we see a bird or a mouse scurrying around, we see space. He then discusses the tree of knowledge. And the knowledge he's talking about is the knowledge between good and evil. Right? Good and evil can be seen as chaos and order. Then he creates humankind. He creates a man and a woman, right? The great dialectic, a biological dialectic that we have lived with since the beginning of our existence on this planet, right? The woman, right? And this is a very difficult concept in the modern world to understand, but the woman who comes from Adam goes to the tree of knowledge and eats from it. And in doing that, they suddenly discover shame. They're embarrassed of themselves. This is a really strange dialectic. We have honor and shame, or duty and shame. Right? You can act honorable. You know, if you know, you talk to someone and they feel ashamed, in that they feel self-conscious, for example, they don't feel they fit in, they're shy. What do? You make them stand up straight, believe in themselves, to act honorably. Right? These dialectics are described in an order in Genesis. Now, if you are uncomfortable with me discussing the Bible in a way that it could embody some sort of wisdom, let's go through the materialist route. Us as human beings evolved into a universe that was full of chaos. We had to survive, didn't we? We had to make sure things didn't come across and kill us. We had to make sure we didn't eat the wrong things that poisoned us. In doing that, the understanding of that and the passing down of that knowledge creates the very first order that we have as human beings. Human beings at some point found shelter in the cave. Now, the cave is a very strange thing. The cave can provide shelter. You run to the cave. Once you're inside the cave, you light your fire and it lights up the cave. And you're at home. You have the idea of home. But the cave has subterranean depths, doesn't it? It protects you from the outside, but it also has subterranean depths. What's in that cave? You see that idea come out. I think there's a scene in The Hobbit, if you've ever watched The Hobbit, where they're outside and the very mountains themselves come alive and they start fighting, and the little hobbits and dwarves suddenly realise that they're just tiny little specks in this huge scheme of nature that could come and wipe them out at any point, and they run inside a cave. They seek solace, they seek protection within the cave, but then the very underbelly of the cave opens up and they descend down into the underworld, full of absolute chaos, full of irrational beings that will grab at them and pull at them. Right? The cave is very important. So as soon as you say a cave, the cave could represent the heart. Okay, I've just grabbed this phrase off the internet that I read. I don't know where it comes from, but it says this: the cave is thought to be closely related to the symbolic heart, and is often a place where the self and the ego unite. In Freudian psychology, he had the id and the ego. The word id is the same word as it. All right? When you're thinking of yourself and you're thinking the itness of yourself, that's the one scurrying around trying to survive. Right? But above that is the ego. And the ego is able to step back and see the order that's in the world around them and inflict order on themselves, right? And the ego and the id work together to create the self. But in Freudian psychology, you also have the superego, and the superego is the stuff around you. It's your family, your personal history, your culture, and how that informs you. It's the things I'm talking about on this video. It's the idea of chaos and order that is embedded in the superego. Jung then came on and took that and said, well, that goes back. We have a sort of collective unconsciousness that draws upon this. Our psychology is completely based upon the idea of the conscious and the subconscious. And the subconscious is like the water, the sea, full of monsters and fear. And the rationalism exists in the conscious, and those two things have to work together. We're very aware that our irrational consciousness is not as strong as the currents that exist in the subconscious, so they can pull you down at any moment in time. You know, it's that idea of a human being, their self being, you know, a small person on the back of an elephant walking through the forest. And the person sat on the elephant is guiding the elephant, right? That is the ego. But the elephant is the id. And if the elephant gets frightened or sees something it wants, it will just walk off. And the ego has no control over that, right? But it has to try and inflict control by trying to take this huge beast and making it do what it wants, knowing that it can't really do that. It has to do that using rationalism, using order, and keep that elephant on the straight and narrow. The straight and narrow is the path through the forest. The straight and narrow is the path of order through the world of chaos, right? Let's go back to these people existing in the cave. When as human beings, we started to arrive at a point of understanding what rationalism is, how to elucidate truth, and philosophy emerged. Plato came up with a concept called Plato's cave, and this is the idea that the cave, which sort of represents our existence in the world, right? That we are sat chained within that cave with our backs to the entrance. We can't actually see what the universe actually is, right? But what we see is there's a fire, and the stuff that's going on behind us casts shadows on the cave, and we are trying to elucidate what those shadows are from the shadows. Now, a shadow, if you actually think about it, is the three-dimensional embodied in two dimensions. Our universe is bounded by space and time. We have been clever enough as a species to discover that space and time are the same thing, but we can't see it like that. Space and time, right? Another dialectic, all right? Two opposing forces seem to be fighting against each other, right? We're aware of space. Space is the thing that we exist in. When you try to be in the moment, or you go through sort of a Buddhist approach to the world, or you exercise mindfulness, you're trying to be aware of the space you're in right now. In other words, forget the idea of time, forget what's behind you and what's happened and what's in front of you, and exist in the moment. That is the way that you get away from the terror of time. But the terror is order. Space is about reward, it's about pleasure, it's about hedonism, it's about existing and breathing in the air. It's the grasping hand that grasps the berry and tastes the berry and eats it and goes, oh, that's pleasure, this is what I mean by hedonism, right? But at the same time, there's certain person who go, oh, don't eat that berry, because in our history, I have now constructed from our history that in the past, somebody ate that and they dropped down dead afterwards. Don't eat it. Oh, why? Because time has come and told us something. Oh my God, I'm frightened now. Time is frightening, but time is order. Space is chaos, but it's not quite. They exist within both, right? So this idea of the cave is very powerful. So the reason I've set this up in this way is I now want to go into a piece of art, and I want to go into a piece of art that very many people know. I want to go into the story of Harry Potter, right? And I want to go into the idea of Voldemort's cave. Voldemort has a cave, remember? And if you watch, which one is it? It's the Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore takes Harry Potter, and they go to that cave to try and search and find the Horcrux. Now, the Horcrux is interesting, because it's something that Voldemort has embodied his soul into. Why has he embodied his soul? Because he wants to be immortal, right? He doesn't want to die. Okay, if you think about Darth Vader in Star Wars, Darth Vader ends up in the situation he's in because he doesn't want his family to die. He cannot control death. Death is the ultimate, to us as human beings, death is the domain of chaos. We all know at some point, however hard we try, that the tentacles of death will come and envelop us at some point, and they will pull us down into death. Religion tries to promise that there will be something there that's wonderful. And I have never been able to quite buy into that. Right? My mission on the earth is to stay alive. When the alarm starts screaming and my house is plunged into darkness, the true terror behind that, and it's quite silly, but the true terror is that the world is now going to descend. And how far will it descend? It will descend to the point where I no longer exist. Non-existence is chaos. Existence is order. Okay? So Voldemort, in his search for immortality, his want to create, control chaos that's in front of him, has taken his soul and embodied it into this Horcrux, and it's in the cave. Dumbledore at this point is facing the same thing. He is facing death. His hand's got this blackness in it. It's the black. It's his hand's turning black. He is going to turn black. It's going to envelop him. The night will envelop him, and he knows it. But unlike Voldemort, because he's a wizard, he's a wise man, he is able to accept that. He sees the greater good. He knows he has to go to that cave, but he takes Harry Potter with him. Dumbledore represents wisdom, knowledge. He represents good and the search for good. But he knows that he cannot solve this situation, right? Because this situation has to bring in the new. And Harry Potter represents the new. Harry Potter stumbles his way through those books, not knowing what he's doing. But he has in him something which seems to work, and nobody knows why. And Dumbledore knows this. He knows that Harry Potter is the key to all this. So he takes Harry Potter with him, and so we arrive in this situation that we have the master and the student. We have the father and the son. We have the person that has all the knowledge and the person that doesn't have the knowledge. But they're going to act in a way. And what's that way? What is that? How does Harry Potter act that Dumbledore can't? Which is the reason why he takes him. They go to the cave. It is sealed off. Right. Dumbledore incants some sort of magical spell and it opens up and they walk into the cave. And this cave, which embodies our mind or the universe or our heart or Plato's cave, you know, all this stuff, it's such a powerful place to be. And this cave has a serene lake within it. There's darkness. Dumbledore's real talent as a wizard is being able to manipulate light. He can control light. Gandalf, if you read Lord of the Rings, his major talent was be able to control light. When the hobbits fall down into the underworld of the goblins, when Gandalf arrives, he holds his staff up and the light shines into this darkness and it inflicts order onto the chaos. Light illuminates. And Dumbledore's a master of this. And his light suddenly lights the cave up and we suddenly see they are here on the shore of a dark lake. Right? He incants another spell and a chain appears and they start to pull the chain and this boat is pulled up. Now for me, this is the boat that takes you to the underworld. It's in Egyptian esoteric, sort of mythology. It's in the idea of Hades, right? You have to pay a price when you get on that boat. Why does anyone want to go to the underworld? This idea of travelling to the underworld, it's in our culture. Virgil does it, Paradise Lost does it. It happens over and over again. They want to exist in the world of order, but they can't. And so they have to dip their toe into the world of chaos. They have to pay the ferryman, and they get on this boat, and they travel across the serene lake, and they arrive at a nest of crystals. Right, crystals are like they illuminate. Right, crystals are like they're found in caves, and they a beautiful structure that emerges out of the cave. And on top of this, there is like a little dip, and it is full of black water. Right, and Dumbledore says, "I have to drink this. This is the cost. This is the payment." What's also interesting, which I forgot to say, is when they enter the cave, the way he enters the cave is by injuring himself. He has to pay the cost. He is about to pay the cost to enter into this terrible place where chaos exists. And he turns around to Harry Potter and he says, "You are going to have to feed me this drink, and whatever I say and whatever I do, however much I hate it, you must not stop feeding it to me." Harry Potter loves Dumbledore, right? And this is against Harry Potter is put in a situation where he's got to go against the feelings of love, all the things that create the order and beauty in the world. He's going to have to move against that. And he starts to feed Dumbledore the black water, and at the moment he does that, the Dumbledore descends to like a child, like a baby, and he's screaming. All his wisdom and rationalism is gone, and he's going, "No, I don't want to do it." And Harry Potter has to force Harry. He has to drink this drink from Harry Potter. The symbolism here is so powerful at this point, because what's happened is what Dumbledore's done is he's upturned this dialectic of the teacher and the student, of the father and the son. This is like Christianity. This is like Jesus. God has to save the world by taking his son and putting him down onto the world, and then Jesus has to exist in that chaotic place, and he's eventually destroyed, but he rises from it. And this is something that happens in Harry Potter. Harry Potter is going to do the same thing. Harry Potter is going to survive death. The thing that Voldemort can't do, and he's trying to do. How is Harry Potter going to do it? Because he's going to face it. He is not going to be scared of death. Right? And he does the right thing at that point. He is a worthy student. And at that moment when he feeds Dumbledore the drink, we see this changeover happen. Right? Once the drink is done, they have paid the price, and the Horcrux appears. But in getting that Horcrux, then we see the embodiment of chaos emerge. And out of the depths come these people. They're people. But they're not people. And the reason why they're not people is because they cannot be reasoned with. They are the things that we are scared of in the night. We're scared of zombies or ghosts, things that we cannot use rational argument on. Right? And in what they do is they come up and they grab Harry Potter. Right? Harry Potter, who is the thing within the story that is going to restore order. But in restoring order, you have to descend into chaos. You have to face the truth. You have to face what you fear. This is the hero. The hero faces what they fear. This is the lesson that is embodied in art. For to succeed, you have to stand up and be honourable, not shameful. You have to be honourable. And through that journey, you will feel ashamed all the way through. And that plays out in Harry Potter. This plays out in all the great stories. Okay? He is pulled down into this dark lake. He's about to be pulled down. It's very similar to Lord of the Rings. When Frodo is passing with Gollum that straight and narrow path through that sort of swampy place where there's been a battle and the dead are still existing. You see the souls burning out, right? And he gets hypnotized, he gets pulled in, and he's being pulled under, right? This is what fear is. Our fear, our anxiety, is the idea that chaos will come and grab us and pull us down. Harry Potter has done the right thing, and now he faces it. But Dumbledore stands up, and he doesn't stop. This time it's not light. It's fire and brimstone that he brings down. Fire and brimstone, right? Fire and brimstone is the terrifying purification by fire that comes from the Almighty, that comes from above. It's order coming down and burning the forest so that new shoots can come up. The fire spreads across the lake, and the creatures of the underworld descend back in. It's standing up to the bully. It's going and facing the dragon. This idea of chaos and order is fundamental to us. Stories that really deal with it well, and J.K. Rowling is a genius of being able to just load this story, because I haven't picked some ancient story. I've gone through Genesis. Genesis is a story as old as our civilization is. But I've also picked a modern story, that probably the most successful story of the last 20 years. And the reason why it's so successful is because we as human beings understand this, but we cannot talk about it. But when we recognise the integration, understanding, and harmonisation of chaos and order, right? When we see that, right? When we see what is in effect the emotions, the id, in harmony, because it's not that order comes along and wipes the chaos away. That cave embodies both, and there's an unbalance there, and the balance is restored, and the water goes flat, and they get on the boat and they leave. Right? This I've described is how stories deal with chaos and order. But those irrational beasts of chaos are also embodied in the idea of rock and roll. Right? In the 1950s and 60s, teenagers who wanted to find a new way of living, they had a very high ideal. The hippies had a high ideal. They were utopian. They wanted to find a new way of living. And in doing that, they descended into chaos. They descended into chaos by dropping acid. They descended into chaos by going to Woodstock and pulling it all down, taking their clothes off. Everything that was, they went to that cave. Right, the young people fed the old people with the black medicine and they didn't like it. They searched for truth in the mouths of people that the society did not think had truth in their voice. The underprivileged, the irrational, the insane, but also groups that the embodied, ordered racism, which is what racism is. It's an untrue ideology that sees things but tries to create this order. Plato not only came up with the idea of the cave, but he came up with the idea of a hierarchy of class with a slave class in. In Plato's world, the aristocracy, the philosopher king, he controlled that, but there was a slave class underneath. Marx, being the great materialist but also the great dialectic Hegelian, he saw it as the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. People took sides. In the 60s, we suddenly went, well, what are black people saying? What are gay people saying? Women, they don't have much of a say. They went to find a new truth. They were young. They were Harry Potters. They were heroes, right? And that elucidated a new truth. Right, and our culture moved on, and for many people who had suffered, their situation got better because of it. But over the last 60 years, those ideas have moved. I don't know which way they moved, so I'll just do this. They have moved that, and now we're living in a situation where these have become dogmatic ideologies, right? And the only way that they can be maintained is by not questioning them. We need to rebalance that. Those people who are ideological on the right and the left need to drink the horrible black drink that Dumbledore had to drink. It will come from the arts and it will come from science. Science will elucidate truths which counteract some of those ideologies. And the ideologues will go, well, we don't accept that truth. We have our own truth. All right? But they will have to accept it because nature will come and do what it needs to do. All right? But on the other side, the arts are going to play a very important role in creating the new pill, the new drink that we all have to drink. The idea of the avant-garde, the idea of experimental art is something that emerges in the 1960s. That has now become the dogma. People trade in the arts in the idea of the shocking, but it's not shocking. There are things now that are truly, taboos out there, and the arts won't go there. The arts has become it's not doing anything at all. There's a crisis in the arts. We can see that across the whole board. We can see that in music. We can see that in film. But these are completely natural. The arts that balance and negotiate chaos and order in a very particular way. And I've always described it like this. It balances the idea of hedonism with perfectionism. The idea of perfectionism, which is the idea of order, the idea of heaven and earth. The earth is chaotic, heaven is perfect. There is perfectionism. That is the order that we want to inflict onto the world around us, right? But also in arts, and this is where music is really important, and this is why I keep coming back to it, and this is why I wanted to create a video on this channel where I only talk about this for the whole video, So anybody who then starts to, explore the depths of my channel, and believe me, there's plenty of chaos here as well as this video. I'm not cracking any jokes. I'm not ranting. This is serious stuff on this video, right? But there's other places where you will see chaos embodied on my videos. I am very aware of this, and I want to, on this video, explain how this informs my aesthetic approach to creating music or art, or these videos as well. But we're not quite there yet, because what I want to do is go into this idea of hedonism. Hedonism is the search for pleasure regardless of rationalism or order, right? It's Dionysus on the mountainside, in all his sort of animal skins, running around, drinking, fornicating. It's the very thing that rock and roll embodies. The Dionysian is in rock and roll. We accepted that. We drunk from that at one point. We celebrated it. That our heroes were Dionysian. That's what rock and roll is, and that is the pursuit of pure emotion, the primal scream that's in Hendrix's guitar playing, the expression of emotion, right? But if you go too far down that route, it just becomes noise. Sometimes that is worth exploring. Let's go totally towards the chaos. Let's just go to the most. And if you keep going that way, the emotional intent starts to go. Right? You've seen this with heavy metal. Heavy metal had a hedonistic heaviness to it. It hit you in the guts. It wasn't intellectual. Right? And the heavy metal bands got heavier. You had Hendrix with Purple Haze, there's Sunshine of Your Love, and then Black Sabbath come out. And Black Sabbath, they're embracing the night. Then Judas Priest came out, and then punk come out, and they pull it, and they say this has got too clever. And then you get the sort of new wave of British heavy metal, which is they get even heavier and they get faster. Metallica, thrash metal, death metal, and we are now arrived at a point where heavy metal is so far down that route that it's come out the other side, and it's just stuff created in computers where everything is absolutely perfect and everything is absolutely nailed. Right? Order has come in. It's come out of that chaos. Right? How do you go to that form of music and go, stop doing it? Get some humanity back in. Start playing. Pull back from just trying to scream so loud, because that has just become a dogmatic ideological cliche now. All right? And it doesn't elucidate anything but, people being impressed by how fast it is. That is the embodiment of perfection. It's this idea, you take the idea, it has to be this fast and this perfect and this on the grid. Perfection for me is about the grid. Right, so us human beings, we carve up space, into, inches and feet or meters and centimeters. We carve up time in terms of seconds, hours, minutes, and all that type of stuff. That's the grid we put on. That's the order that scientists try and put on the world when they elucidate truth. And that's the order that musicians try and put on their emotions when they try and get it as perfect as they possibly can. Right, perfectionism is something that artists strive for. They strive for it so strong that it actually undoes them. It can destroy them. Perfectionism is balanced by hedonism. That's the pleasurable stuff, and everything that's pleasurable is the screams and the whoops and the hollers and everything that's off the grid. Every time you stretch the grid, that's where the enjoyment is. But if it's just stress, it turns into the other side. The same thing with perfectionism. If you just get more and more and more and more perfect, what do you end up with? Nothing. Right? What art is, what music is the artist trying to balance, find and negotiate in the culture that they exist in, with the medicine, the black water that society needs, the right amount of balance between hedonism and perfectionism. That has to be renegotiated all the time. And when they do it, right, the first people to find that new way of doing it, for the society, it is like that black water. Okay? So, that is what the musician's trying to do. What we see is we appreciate that and we go, that's beautiful, because it's the perfect balance between perfectionism and hedonism. And when an artist believes in themselves and they know they found a new way of negotiating it, and they keep saying this is another way, and then society goes, is it really? That is the society has to drink of that medicine, and people will come along and go, well, that's a load of rubbish, it's nonsense, why are they doing that, I don't understand it, why don't they just do something that entertains us? But entertainment is not art. Art negotiates, it's a negotiation between these two things. So I think I have arrived at the end of this video. 45 minutes have passed. I think I've got through everything I wanted to say, and so I now have a video on my channel that only deals with this concept and nothing else, which I wanted because it would create order on my channel. Anyway, I will finish there. I hope you appreciate my new look here. I'm sat here, you know, with I got a new light. And this light, if you swizzle it around, I can sort of create these. Whoa, look at that. You can see I've got this new, oh God, don't touch it. Why are you touching it? It was all put in the right place. Perfect. I got a new light and I've got a new microphone. Hello there, this is Andy Edwards. That has been paid for by my patrons and donations to this channel. And if you want to help me to move this channel to a new ordered, perfect realm that the world can accept rather than the chaotic nonsense that I've been doing for the last 3 years, then you can like my video and that will help, and that costs nothing. Or you could subscribe so you can go on this journey that I'm on with me and see what I'm going to do next, because I don't know what it is. And if you want to support me financially, and those who have already, you are now can sit there happy going, oh my God, Andy's got a light and he's got a microphone, he's going up in the world. And I am going up in the world, up to where order exists. I want to be up there. I don't want to have the chaos pull me down into the netherworld of YouTube, you know, just full of videos of people trying to fight big spiders and cats having weird expressions on their face. I don't want to be pulled down into that, do I? But it might happen. It might happen. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.